Hi, I'm Luna, and this is the Luna Report. A new intern at a Brooklyn barbershop was laughed at, insulted, and told to stick to sweeping floors. No manicure, no designer brands, just a hoodie and a notebook. But when a high-profile client demanded a cut, no one else dared attempt. What happened next shocked the entire shop and the internet. Who is she really? And why does the tattoo on her wrist have veteran barbers shaking? Find out in today's episode of the Luna Report. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Luna. Back to the studio, and we begin. The clippers hummed. Faded photos of box cuts, skin fades, and precision shaves lined the walls like trophies in this Brooklyn barbershop. The Kingsman's chair, a fortress of masculinity and muscle banter. Jazz and grime shared the speaker, but the dominant sound was male laughter, low and territorial. Then Ellie walked in. No makeup, no brand logos, just a charcoal hoodie, scuffed sneakers, a tight bun. She carried a chipped thermos and a small notebook wrapped in a rubber band. The barbers froze, not because she looked out of place, but because she didn't care that she did. Intern, Tony, the owner, grunted to the others, jerking a thumb. New kid. Supposed to clean up, run coffee. Don't get in the way. They chuckled, not kindly. She even know what a straight razor is, muttered Malik, buffing his tools. Only blade she's held is probably for shaving her legs, Rico added, shaking his head. A third barber, Kurt, didn't even lower his voice. A woman in a barbershop is like a dog in a restaurant. Technically possible, still ruins the vibe. The laughter was sharp, meant to sting. Ellie said nothing. She handed out espresso cups like a ghost, cleaned the floor like it was a ritual, watched every fade and scissor-snipped line like a disciple. Her eyes didn't blink when razors grazed jugulars. She didn't flinch when clients barked orders. Still, every man in the room treated her like a ghost who'd overstayed her welcome. On the third day, Rico snapped his fingers at her. Sweetheart, get the mop. And next time, wear something less depressing. She looked at him. No words. Just a single scribble in her notebook. They mocked that too. She's journaling our sins, Malik laughed. Tony just rolled his eyes. Watch and clean, Ellie. That's your job. Don't touch the blades. They're for professionals. That phrase, they're for professionals, became the barber's chant. They'd say it as a punchline, a wall she was never supposed to climb. But Ellie kept watching. One client, an aging boxer with tremors in his hands, gave her a nod one evening and said quietly, "You've got steady eyes, girl, that's rare." The barber smirked behind him. She just bowed slightly and offered him tea. Later that week, Rico left a used razor in her cleaning bin, the blade still wet. She returned it to his station, spotless, her fingers unshaken. "You're not scared of blood?" he asked, surprised. Ellie only tilted her head and wrote something down. They never asked what, because they were too busy mocking her, too busy laughing, until the day the chair opened and no one but her was left to fill it. The morning started like static. Rain slapped the windows of the Kingsman's chair while the regulars filtered in, dragging damp boots and entitlement. Tony was late, which was rare. He was the anchor, the loud voice that stitched the rhythm of the day. Without him, the barbers hesitated, suddenly unsure of the pecking order. Ellie stood behind the espresso machine, her hoodie sleeves rolled just above her wrists. She handed out coffee without being asked, sweeping up yesterday's hair, notebook tucked in her back pocket like a blade she hadn't drawn yet. Then the front bell jingled. In walked Dre Daniels, the TikTok alpha with 6 million followers and a silver Rolls parked out front. His videos, fast cuts, faster insults, had made the Kingsman's chair a destination. His hair was a brand in itself, a retro fade with a custom swirl only Tony could nail. "Tony in?" Dre asked, sliding his sunglasses to his forehead. "No," Kurt muttered. "Late?" Dre frowned, checked his phone. "I got a collab shoot in 40 minutes. Someone else can do it, right?" Rico laughed nervously. "You want Tony's cut, you wait." Or Dre turned, scanning the room. Someone steps up. Silence. The other chairs froze. No one dared mess up Dre's brand. No one wanted the backlash if the fade wasn't flawless. The barbers exchanged looks, trying to look busy. Then Ellie stepped forward. "I can take him." Rico's eyes went wide. "What? Hell no." "You serious?" Malik barked. "That cut takes 3 years of precision." "She's not even licensed," Kurt growled. "You'll ruin his whole feed." But Dre raised a brow, intrigued. "You ever do a vintage fade before?" Ellie nodded once. In Vegas. Under pressure. No cameras. Just blood and sweat. That silenced the room. "You cut fighters?" Dre asked. Ellie didn't blink. No lights, sometimes with broken clippers. They needed to look clean for weigh-ins. I made it happen. The silence thickened. Dre took the chair. You mess up, he said. It's viral. I'll roast you for a month. Ellie pulled on gloves, clipped a cape, and picked up the clippers with the calm of someone unseduced by the stakes. 5 minutes later, the mirror reflected not just a clean fade, but a work of art. Edges sculpted to perfection, a swirl so crisp it looked laser-etched, with a 1950s swoop that Dre hadn't even asked for. The room was dead silent. Even the razors seemed to stop humming. Dre stood slowly, touching the cut like he couldn't believe it was real. Then he turned to the mirror and whispered, "Yo, this is the cleanest cut I've ever had." He turned to Ellie. "Where the hell did you learn to move like that?" Ellie wiped her blades, calm as ever. "I don't move, I measure." And then someone noticed the tattoo on the inside of her wrist, peeking beneath her rolled-up hoodie. Scissors, inked like steel, and the initials VBC. Malik paled. "Wait, is that Vegas Barber Cartel?" The room erupted. Ellie just smiled, notebook in her back pocket like a secret they'd all ignored. The barbers crowded around Dre like he'd just witnessed a ghost. "You serious?" Rico asked, leaning closer to Ellie's wrist. "VBC? The Vegas Barber Cartel? That's not a joke around here." "Tattoo's real," Malik muttered. "You don't fake that unless you're suicidal." Ellie calmly removed her gloves, setting them down like surgical tools. The room was vibrating with disbelief. Kurt narrowed his eyes. Cartel went underground years ago. Last anyone heard, their top apprentice disappeared during the Blade Kings finals. She ghosted the whole scene. Ellie looked up, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I didn't disappear, I walked away." Malik blinked. "No way, the Blade Kings championship? You're saying you—" Rico already had his phone out. "Yo, hold up, I'm pulling this up." He typed fast. The others leaned in. There it was, a video. Grainy but undeniable, a 22-year-old woman in a battered bomber jacket standing on a competition stage, clippers in one hand, comb in the other. The caption read, "Elena Ellie Reyes, Blade Kings champion 3 years running, vanished twice." And the freeze frame? Same eyes. Same quiet focus. Same tattoo. The room went silent. "I watched that clip 100 times, Malik said, awe in his voice. "Didn't even know she was American. Thought she was some Euro prodigy." Rico's voice dropped. "Why'd you disappear?" Ellie slid her notebook back into her pocket. "Vegas stopped being about craft, started being about cameras, sponsors, ego. I needed something real again, so I left, came back." "You came to this dump?" Kurt spat, still shaken. "To be an intern?" She didn't answer. Just grabbed a broom, sweeping stray hairs from the floor like she hadn't just broken the barbershop's collective ego. Dre Daniels stood, filming now. "This girl just gave me a masterpiece in 5 minutes flat. Y'all clowns laughed at her?" His phone captured each barber's silence. "Yo," Dre said to his 6 million followers, "remember this name, Ellie Reyes, the realist in Brooklyn." Within minutes, comments flooded in. "That fade is criminal." "She's Blade Kings." "Bro, I thought she vanished." This just humbled every man in that shop. Tony burst through the door mid-chaos, rain dripping from his coat. What the hell is going on? He saw Dre's cut, saw the crowd, then saw Ellie. "What'd you do?" "She cut," Rico said, voice dry. "Better than all of us." Tony looked at Dre's head, whistled low. And for the first time, Ellie spoke loud enough for the entire room. "I didn't come here to compete. I came to remember why I love the blade." Then she turned, grabbed her thermos, and walked into the back room without waiting for praise. Dre looked at Tony. "You got a star. Don't screw this up." But Tony was already staring at the clippers she left behind like they were holy. Because from that moment on, the hierarchy in the Kingsman's chair had shifted. And everyone knew it. The video went viral overnight. By morning, the Kingsman's chair had a line wrapped around the block. Men with TikTok handles etched on their hoodies waited in the rain just to sit where Dre had. Girls came too, asking quietly if the one with the scissors tattoo was taking appointments. Someone chalked her name on the sidewalk in bold capitals, Ellie Reyes. Inside, the atmosphere was different, quieter, charged. Tony, still stunned from yesterday, stood by the register rereading the comments under Dre's post like scripture. Malik and Rico cut hair with the humility of priests, slower, more deliberate. Kurt had gone home early. Ellie arrived with no fanfare. Same hoodie, same sneakers, same quiet eyes. But now, when she walked in, the room noticed. Tony cleared his throat. "You're at Station 3 now." That was his old spot. Ellie looked at the chair, polished leather, cracked from years of wear. A master station. She didn't smile, just nodded. Rico watched her unpack her kit. Old metal clippers, hand-oiled. She laid them out with the precision of a surgeon.
"You really vanished after Blade Kings?"
He asked softly. Ellie met his gaze. Vegas wasn't about people anymore, only status. I cut for fighters. I saw men bleed on their way to redemption. And then sponsors started telling me how to hold a comb. Malik spoke up from across the room. What about now? She shrugged. Now I cut for silence. He nodded. And somehow that made more sense than anything they'd ever heard. That day, Ellie took 4 appointments, that was all. Each man walked out looking like they'd just signed an NBA deal. By noon, Tony's phone rang. It was Mr. Goldstein, the shop's oldest and richest client, a man no one dared reschedule. She cuts me now, the voice barked. I want the one who fixed Dre's broken fade. Tony hesitated. Ellie only takes 4 a day. Then book me for next week. Silence. Then, actually, book me for every Thursday 3 months in advance. Tony hung up slowly, turned, looked at her. Is this what you wanted? Ellie didn't answer. But Rico did. She didn't want this, bro. She earned it. Malik leaned against the mirror. That's what you all missed. She didn't shout. She just cut. A new customer, young and nervous, sat in Ellie's chair. Can you do a mid-fade with a swirl? Ellie's hand hovered over her clippers. Name 3 things that make you feel like you... The boy blinked. My dad's watch, Sunday jazz, and getting a fresh cut before interviews. She nodded. And then she cut his hair like a song. Not for the algorithm, but for him. That night the shop was supposed to close at 8. It didn't. The chairs stopped spinning at 11, long after the last client staggered out, stunned and freshly transformed. The floor was clean, the mirrors glowed, but the air felt thick, like something unspoken had been laced into the walls. Tony poured a drink behind the counter, a ritual he reserved for reflection or regret. He didn't offer Ellie one. He just watched her from a distance, the way a general watches a soldier he underestimated. You played us all, he finally said. Ellie, cleaning her blades, didn't look up. I didn't play. I listened. Rico sat nearby, scrolling through a tablet. Articles are up, blogs, influencers. Even the Fade Report named her the comeback queen of the decade. Malik exhaled. You know what they're saying, right? That we treated her like dirt. That this place doesn't deserve her. Tony's jaw tensed. We built this place with grit. No, Rico corrected him. You built it with gatekeeping. Ellie packed up her tools, still quiet, still unbothered. But then Kurt stormed in through the side door, flushed, breathing hard. You see this? He barked, holding out his phone. My client list's empty, 3 canceled. 1 told me straight up, if Ellie's not cutting, I'm not coming. Nobody said anything. He turned to Ellie. You think this is fair? You just walk in, serve coffee, act invisible for weeks, and now you're queen of the Clippers? Ellie raised her head slowly. Her voice was low, controlled. You called me a dog. You laughed while I swept your mess. You let your ego infect every edge you cut. Now you're angry your blade won't save you? Kurt stepped closer. You think that tattoo makes you better than us? No, Ellie said, calm. But every scar behind it does. Tony slammed his glass down. That's enough. But Ellie was already putting on her coat. No, she said, it's not. She walked to the main mirror, pulled a black marker from her kit, and with a single sweep of her hand, she wrote on the glass, True style doesn't shout, it cuts. Her handwriting was steady, elegant. Then she turned back, her eyes resting on each man like a verdict. I came here because I missed what the blade used to mean. Before status, before cameras, just the sound of steel and silence. And she left. The shop stayed quiet for a long time after, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of consequence. The fallout hit fast. By the next morning, 2 regular clients had canceled appointments with Rico. Malik's Saturday lineup, usually booked solid, was down to 1. Kurt's entire Friday roster dropped off the schedule without explanation. The message was clear. Ellie had become the standard, and everyone else, optional. Tony didn't speak much that day. He sat at the front desk, scrolling through Yelp, watching the reviews multiply like judgment from the sky. Ellie changed the way I see myself. The other barbers laughed at her. I watched. Now I won't let anyone but her near my scalp. I'd wait 3 months for a cut like that. The phones rang nonstop. Every voice asked for her. One man offered to fly in from Chicago. Another asked if she would do a wedding party in Paris. Tony stared at the schedule like it was betraying him in real time. Ellie, meanwhile, didn't gloat. She arrived on time, same hoodie, same notebook, same 4 appointments a day. She never raised her voice. She never looked smug. She didn't have to, because the barbershop itself had changed orbit and Ellie was the new sun. By Thursday, 2 things happened. A formal complaint was filed by Kurt accusing Ellie of intimidation and disruption of team culture. Tony got a message from Blade Kings International, a rep requesting Ellie's availability for a masterclass in brand collaboration. Tony paced the back office, jaw tight. This shop's being turned into a shrine for a ghost who didn't pay her dues. Malik leaned in the doorway. She paid. You just weren't watching. Tony pointed a trembling finger. You want to know what's happening? Clients aren't loyal. They're chasing novelty. That's what Ellie is. Flash. Rico shook his head from the hallway. Nah, boss, she's not novelty. She's truth. That's what hurts. Then came Friday. Ellie's first client was Mr. Goldstein, Manhattan banker. Three-piece suit, no patience for anyone under 45. He sat in Ellie's chair with reverence. You know, he said softly, I've been coming here for 8 years. Thought I knew what a haircut was, but you don't cut, you restore. Ellie smiled faintly. Hair remembers, you just have to remind it who it used to be. Kurt, sweeping nearby, slammed the broom into the wall. Enough with the monk riddles. Tony stood in the doorway. Kurt, no, this is insane. We built this place, and now everyone's acting like she's Moses coming down with clipper commandments. Ellie calmly removed her gloves, stood, and faced him. You built a temple, she said, but you forgot the blade is sacred. You mocked the ritual. I didn't. The door opened behind her. It was a courier. He handed Tony a sealed envelope. Official letterhead. He opened it. Read it. Paled. What is it? Rico asked. Tony looked up, eyes unreadable. Ellie, they're offering you a 40% ownership stake. The barbershop froze. Not a sound, not a breath. Ellie took the letter. Read it once, folded it neatly. Tell them I'll think about it, she said, slipping it into her pocket. And then she got back to work. By Saturday, the transformation was irreversible. The Kingsman's chair was no longer just a barber shop, it was a destination. People came not for a cut, but for the silence between Ellie's comb and clipper. A silence that felt like meditation, or surgery, or prayer. Each snip of her shears seemed to whisper, you were never invisible. Not to me. Tony tried to act like he still ran the place, but the power dynamic had shifted. Everyone knew it. Even the walls seemed to echo differently when Ellie entered. Kurt sulked behind his station, pretending to clean razors that no one trusted him to use. That afternoon, a boy no older than 10 walked in with his father. Shy, head down, curls hiding his face. The father whispered something to Tony, gesturing toward Ellie's chair. She's booked for weeks, Tony said. The father hesitated. He's getting bullied. Says his hair makes him feel like a joke. I want him to see himself different, even once. Tony looked toward Ellie's chair, then back to the boy, then for the first time in years, stepped aside. I'll ask. When Ellie heard, she didn't hesitate. She finished her last scheduled cut, motioned the boy over, and crouched beside him. What do you want to feel like when you look in the mirror, she asked. The boy's voice barely rose above a breath. Not broken. Ellie nodded. We can work with that. She didn't give him a trend, didn't sculpt a brand. She just cut with the kind of quiet purpose that turns strangers into symbols. When the boy finally looked in the mirror, his father blinked twice, hard. Who's that? The boy whispered. You, Ellie said softly, but the version who knows he matters. Applause didn't follow, but something better did. Kurt turned away. Rico stepped closer. Tony just stood still. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low over Brooklyn, Ellie sat alone on the rooftop above the shop, notebook in hand. She flipped past pages filled with sketches of cuts, notes on hair texture, fragments of overheard conversations. Then she paused. On the last page was a name written years ago in Vegas, a fighter she'd cut for after his title loss. She'd rebuilt him, strand by strand, until he could face the world again. Underneath his name, she had written, "The blade remembers who you are, even when the mirror forgets." She stared at it for a long time, and then, in slow, quiet script, added a new line beneath. So does Ellie Reyes. Monday morning brought more than sunlight, it brought a reckoning. A black SUV pulled up to the Kingsman's chair, and out stepped a woman in heels sharp enough to slice confidence in half. Sloan Bradford, regional director of Fade League USA, the biggest certification body in the industry. She walked in, clipboard in hand, suit tailored to corporate war. Tony stiffened. Didn't expect you. I didn't ask, she replied. She turned to Ellie's chair, now polished daily, surrounded by candles, someone no one admitted who had begun lighting in the early hours. So, she's the one. Tony nodded once. She is. Sloane's eyes narrowed. Unlicensed. No apprenticeship, no file. She doesn't even have a license number in the system. Kurt, still bitter, chimed in. Tried to tell everyone she's a rogue, a brand risk. Sloane raised an eyebrow. You have a problem with precision, Kurt. He shut up fast. Sloan walked over to Ellie, who was mid-fade on an older man with skin folds like creased paper and a gentle grip on the chair arms. She didn't stop cutting. Sloan spoke softly but clearly. I could shut this entire place down. You know that? Ellie tilted her head. You could. Then why are you still cutting? Ellie adjusted the comb in her hand. Because he waited 6 weeks for this appointment, and I don't miss appointments. Sloan glanced at the cut in progress. Her eyes flickered. Blade angle's off by half a degree. Ellie didn't blink. He has a double crown. Half a degree keeps the fade from collapsing under natural pressure. Feel free to check. Sloan did, and said nothing. The cut finished 10 minutes later. The man looked in the mirror, eyes glinting. That's me, he said softly, tears tracing his smile lines. Sloan looked shaken. Ellie finally turned. What do you want? I want to know why you never came back, Sloan said. VBC was waiting for your return. After Blade Kings, we held your title in reserve. You walked away. Ellie nodded. I didn't cut to win. I cut to connect. That stage turned clippers into weapons. And now? Sloan asked. Ellie didn't hesitate. Now I cut to heal. If that's a crime, take the chair. Sloan stepped back, something unreadable in her expression. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside, a golden pin shaped like shears wrapped in a crown. Only 3 in the world, Sloan said, reserved for masters who change the game without asking permission. She handed it to Ellie. Next time someone questions your legitimacy, Sloan said, don't argue, just wear this. Ellie took it in silence. A slow nod, no smile, but her hands trembled, just slightly. When Sloan left, Rico whispered, you gonna wear it? Ellie looked down at the pin. No, she said, placing it gently in her notebook. I'm going to earn it again. Every single day. And then she swept the floor. The next morning, the Kingsman's chair looked different. Not physically. The walls were still a faded gray. The chairs still creaked when swiveled too hard. But the air had changed. Sharp with clarity, thick with reverence. Ellie's pin, the gold crown of clippers, remained inside her notebook. She didn't flaunt it. Didn't need to. But the others felt its weight. Tony entered early, unusually silent. He swept the floor himself before Ellie arrived. Rico rearranged his tools 3 times in a row. His nervous energy coiled like a spring. Malik reviewed old fade tutorials on his phone between clients. No one wanted to admit it, but they were studying her now. Even Kurt. Especially Kurt. At noon, the door chimed and a young man walked in with a film crew. Microphones, tripods, LED rings. Tony blinked. What is this? The man grinned, stylish in a suede jacket and fresh locks. Name's Micah Cruz. We're from Cut Culture. We do long-form docuseries on legendary barbers. Ellie's episode is our season finale. Rico choked on his water. Malik cursed under his breath. Micah gestured to the camera crew. We've got footage from Vegas, the Blade Kings final, unreleased stuff. Interviews with her old clients. Her name's trending worldwide. We're doing her story with or without you. Tony's voice was low. You're filming in my shop? Her shop, Micah corrected.
Everyone froze.
Tony laughed, but it was hollow. She doesn't own this place. Micah pulled out his phone, tapped twice, and turned the screen to him. Tony read it and sat down hard in his chair. Effective immediately, 40% ownership of the Kingsman's chair is transferred to Ellie Reyes, approved by Fade League USA and the Brooklyn Barber Board. Who signed this? Tony whispered. Your silent partner, Micah said. Turns out he's a fan of hers. Ellie entered the shop just then, sipping her thermos. She paused at the doorway, noting the silence. The film crew turned their cameras toward her, but she raised a hand. No footage until I'm done cutting. Micah nodded, impressed. Of course. Ellie took her seat. Clients began to file in, 2 with high-ranking jobs in fashion, another a senator's aide, the last a local firefighter. Each greeted her like a returning queen. None acknowledged the others. Then Ellie did something she'd never done before. She pinned a small note to the station mirror. My cut list, 4 a day. No walk-ins. If you're on it, you'll know. It wasn't ego. It was standard. Rico leaned over. You really gonna keep it at 4? Ellie's eyes never left her tools. Mastery doesn't scale. Kurt stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching the crowd form, none of them asking for him. He spoke quietly. Do I make the list? Ellie turned to him. You'll have to earn it. And for once, he didn't argue. He just nodded. 3 months later, the list was full. 3 months in advance, no exceptions, no bribes. Ellie's name was whispered in fashion circles. scrawled in influencer captions, murmured in locker rooms by men who once wouldn't let a woman near their necklines. Inside the Kingsman's chair, change was visible. Malik now asked questions more than he cracked jokes. Rico started experimenting with detail razors. Even Kurt stopped mocking and started listening, quietly rewatching old videos of Ellie's championship fades after hours. But Tony watched it all from behind the desk, hollowed by the weight of what he almost ruined. Then, one morning, Ellie arrived early. She wore black, not her usual hoodie, but a pressed jacket, stiff and formal. She walked in with a quiet gravity like a judge entering a courtroom. On the mirror at her station, a single envelope waited. Her handwriting. Tony approached slowly. "What's this?" Ellie didn't look at him. Read it. Tony opened it. Inside, a note. Handwritten, sharp. "Effective immediately. I relinquish ownership of my 40% stake in the Kingsman's chair. I've made my point. Now it's time for a new cut." Tony's voice cracked. "You're leaving?" Ellie nodded. "My work here is done." Rico stepped forward. "You can't go. You're what made this place matter." "I reminded it," she said softly. "It was always supposed to." Malik's voice shook. "What do we tell the clients?" "Tell them the chair's open," Ellie said, "but the mirror remembers." She walked to the wall where her quote still lived, faint under months of smudged fingerprints. "True style doesn't shout. It cuts." She wiped it clean with her sleeve. Then, from her pocket, she pulled the golden pin Sloane had given her months ago, the crown of clippers, and pressed it to the mirror glass. She left it there, like a seal, like a challenge. Then she turned to the crew, the barbers, the regulars gathering in quiet disbelief. "I never wanted to be the queen of the shop," she said. "I just didn't want to be their joke." And with that, she walked out the door. No cameras followed. No music swelled. Just the soft jingle of the bell and a breeze that seemed to linger too long. For days, her absence echoed in the snips and murmurs. The pin stayed on the mirror, so did her legend. Some said she opened her own studio in a hidden alley in Dumbo. Others claimed she was teaching overseas, sharpening soldiers of style with the same silent discipline. A few swore they saw her cut a homeless man's hair in Washington Square Park without a word, then vanish. But here's what's certain. No one ever forgot her. And every time a barber picked up a clipper with real care, with real precision, the steel whispered her name back. Ellie Reyes.